Good morning, everyone. I want to begin today by asking you to close your eyes for just a moment. Take yourself back, way back, to when you were 7 or 8 years old. What do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? Perhaps you're in your grandmother's kitchen, watching flour dust dance in the afternoon sunlight as she rolls out pie crust. Maybe you're sitting on a front porch swing, listening to the rhythmic creak as your grandfather tells stories about the old days, which weren't so old to him then. Or perhaps you're running barefoot through grass that seemed so much taller then, chasing fireflies as the summer evening painted the sky in watercolors. You can open your eyes now, but hold on to that feeling for a moment, that sense of wonder, of possibility, of pure, unburdened joy. Today I want to talk about those cherished childhood memories and what they continue to teach us, even now, decades later. Because you see, those memories aren't just pleasant souvenirs gathering dust in the attics of our minds. They're living treasures, still pulsing with wisdom that can illuminate our present and guide our future. The gift of presence. Let me start with something I've noticed about childhood memories. They're never about multitasking. A child doesn't sit at the dinner table thinking about tomorrow's math test while simultaneously worrying about paying the bills and planning next week's grocery list. When a child is building a sandcastle, that's all they're doing, building a sandcastle. When they're listening to a bedtime story, they're completely absorbed in that magical world between the pages. I remember my own childhood summers at my aunt's farm. There was this old apple tree, gnarled and perfect for climbing, and I would spend entire afternoons up in its branches, not checking my phone, not thinking about what I should be doing instead, just being, just existing in that perfect pocket of time, where the only thing that mattered was the feel of bark beneath my hands and the sound of leaves whispering secrets above my head. What does this teach us today? In our world of constant connectivity, endless notifications, and perpetual busyness, our childhood memories remind us of the profound gift of presence. They whisper to us, remember what it felt like to be fully here, fully now. This isn't just nostalgia talking. Medical research shows us that mindfulness, this quality of present moment awareness that came so naturally to us as children, reduces stress, improves memory, and enhances overall well-being. Our childhood selves knew something we've forgotten, that life happens in moments, not in our endless mental rehearsals of yesterday and tomorrow. The courage to wonder. Children are natural philosophers. They ask the big questions without embarrassment. Why is the sky blue? Where do dreams come from? What makes people sad? They haven't yet learned that some questions don't have easy answers, so they ask them anyway. I think of my granddaughter, who once asked me, "Grandpa, do flowers have feelings when we pick them?" Now, I could have dismissed this as childish imagination. Instead, it led to one of the most profound conversations we've ever had about empathy, interconnectedness, and our responsibility to the natural world. As we age, we often pride ourselves on accumulated knowledge. We know things. We've figured out how the world works. But our childhood memories challenge this smugness. They remind us that the most profound wisdom often begins with wonder, not certainty. Einstein once said, "I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious." He maintained what psychologists call beginner's mind throughout his life. That sense of openness and wonder that allows us to see familiar things with fresh eyes. Your childhood memories are repositories of this wonder. When you remember staring up at the stars and feeling that delicious sense of smallness in the vast universe, when you recall the miracle of watching a butterfly emerge from its cocoon in your third-grade classroom, these memories are calling you back to wonder. And here's what I've discovered. Wonder doesn't diminish with age, unless we let it. A sunset is no less magnificent at 80 than it was at 8. The first snowfall of winter can still stop us in our tracks with its silent beauty. Children remind us that growing older doesn't mean growing less amazed. It means we have more experiences to wonder about. The simplicity of joy. Children find joy in the simplest things. A cardboard box becomes a spaceship. A puddle becomes an ocean. A dandelion gone to seed becomes a wishmaker of infinite possibility. I remember spending an entire summer afternoon with my cousin, armed with nothing but a magnifying glass and a sense of adventure. We examined everything: the intricate patterns on a leaf, the architecture of an anthill, the tiny ecosystem in a drop of pond water. We were explorers, scientists, discoverers of wonders hiding in plain sight. Contrast this with how complicated we often make happiness as adults. We think joy requires the perfect circumstances, the right conditions, the absence of problems. We postpone contentment until we get the promotion, until the kids are grown, until we retire, until we lose weight, until. But our childhood memories whisper a different truth. Joy is not a destination, but a capacity. It's not something we achieve, but something we allow. The child who spends hours making mud pies isn't waiting for better clay. The child who races through sprinklers isn't concerned about proper swimwear. They've discovered that happiness is often found not in having everything we want, but in fully experiencing what we have. This doesn't mean we should abandon our goals or settle for less than we deserve. Rather, it means we can learn from our younger selves about finding pockets of delight in ordinary moments. The satisfaction of a well-made bed, the pleasure of a conversation with a neighbor, the simple contentment of a cup of coffee, enjoyed without rushing to the next task, the healing power of play. When we were children, play wasn't a luxury, it was a necessity. It was how we learned, how we processed experiences, how we connected with others. Through play, we explored roles, tested boundaries, and discovered our capabilities. Yet somewhere along the way, many of us internalized the message that play is frivolous, that adults should be serious, productive, purposeful in everything they do. We've created a false dichotomy between work and play, between responsibility and fun. But our childhood memories challenge this artificial separation. They remind us that play isn't the opposite of work, it's often the fuel that makes meaningful work possible. When we played house as children, we were learning about relationships and responsibility. When we built elaborate structures with blocks, we were developing spatial reasoning and persistence. When we made up stories and acted them out, we were building empathy and creativity. Research supports what our child selves knew intuitively. Play enhances brain function, reduces stress, improves relationships, and boosts creativity. It's not something we outgrow. It's something we abandon at our own peril. I think of couples in their 70s and 80s who still laugh together, who still find ways to be playful. They haven't forgotten the lesson of childhood, that joy shared is joy multiplied, that laughter is medicine, that a sense of humor is often what carries us through the difficult times. The wisdom of resilience. Here's something interesting about childhood memories. We rarely dwell on the times we fell down. We remember getting back up. We remember the triumph, not the tumble. Children are remarkably resilient, not because they don't experience disappointment, fear, or sadness, but because they haven't yet learned to make these feelings permanent residents in their hearts. A child who strikes out at baseball doesn't retire from the sport. They ask when the next game is. A child whose sandcastle is washed away by a wave doesn't swear off beach construction. They start building a new one. This isn't naivety, it's wisdom. Children understand something we often forget, that failure is not an identity but an event, that setbacks are not endings, but beginnings. That resilience isn't about avoiding difficulty, but about moving through it. As we reflect on our childhood memories, we're not just remembering moments of innocence, we're reconnecting with our capacity for resilience. Every skin knee that healed, every friendship conflict that resolved, every fear that we eventually outgrew, these experiences taught us that we're more resilient than we think. This wisdom becomes particularly precious as we age and face new challenges, health concerns, loss of loved ones, changes in our abilities or circumstances. Our childhood memories remind us You've overcome difficulties before. You've adapted. You've found ways to carry on. That strength is still within you. The gift of imagination. Children live in a world where magic is possible. They have tea parties with invisible friends, fight dragons in the backyard, and sail to distant lands on living room couches. Their imagination isn't constrained by, "That's not realistic," or "That's not how things work." As adults, we often pride ourselves on being practical, realistic, and grounded. These are valuable qualities, but not when they come at the expense of imagination. Because imagination isn't just about make-believe. It's the foundation of innovation, empathy, and hope. When we imagine, we exercise our capacity to see beyond current circumstances. We practice possibility. We rehearse for change. The adult who has maintained their imaginative capacity is the one who can envision new solutions to old problems, who can empathize with experiences different from their own, who can maintain hope even in difficult circumstances. Your childhood memories of imagination aren't just quaint recollections. They're reminders of a cognitive capacity that remains available to you. The ability to dream, to envision, to ask what if doesn't expire with age. In fact, the combination of imagination and life experience creates a particularly powerful form of wisdom. The value of simplicity. Children's desires are refreshingly simple. They want to play, to be loved, to feel safe, to explore. They haven't yet learned to complicate these basic human needs with layers of social expectations, material acquisitions, and status concerns. I remember my happiest childhood moments had nothing to do with expensive toys or elaborate activities. They were simple: reading under a blanket with a flashlight, helping my mother bake cookies, listening to my father's stories about his own childhood. These moments were rich not because of what they contained, but because of the attention they received. Our consumer culture constantly tells us that happiness requires more. More stuff, more experiences, more achievements. But our childhood memories offer a different perspective. They remind us that contentment often comes not from addition but from appreciation, not from accumulation but from attention. This doesn't mean we should live without ambition or avoid nice things. Rather, it means we can learn from our younger selves about distinguishing between what we want and what we need, between what truly enriches our lives and what merely fills our space. The power of connection. Perhaps most importantly, our childhood memories remind us about the power of human connection. Think about your most cherished childhood memories. I'll bet most of them involve other people. The grandmother who taught you to knit, the friend with whom you shared countless adventures, the teacher who believed in you, the family gatherings where you felt complete belonging. Children understand instinctively what research now confirms. Relationships are the foundation of well-being. They don't network, they befriend. They don't manage relationships, they enjoy them. They haven't yet learned to be too busy for the people who matter to them. As we age, it's easy to let relationships become casualties of our busy lives. We postpone phone calls, skip gatherings, assume there will always be another opportunity to connect. But our childhood memories remind us of a fundamental truth. Time with people we love is never time wasted. Living the lessons. So, what do we do with all this wisdom from our childhood memories? How do we live these lessons without trying to return to a past that no longer exists? First, we can practice presence. We can choose to be fully where we are, doing what we're doing, with whom we're with. This might mean putting away the phone during conversations, eating a meal without distractions, or taking a walk just for the pleasure of walking. Second, we can cultivate wonder. We can ask questions, even ones that don't have easy answers. We can look at familiar things with fresh eyes. We can maintain what researchers call openness to experience, that willingness to engage with new ideas, new people, new possibilities. Third, we can simplify our relationship with joy. We can notice and appreciate small pleasures. We can stop postponing happiness until conditions are perfect. We can remember that contentment is often found not in having everything we want, but in wanting what we have. Fourth, we can reclaim play. This doesn't mean we need to start playing with toys, though if that brings you joy, why not? It means we can approach life with a sense of lightness, creativity, and fun. We can laugh more. We can be spontaneous. We can remember that life is meant to be lived, not just endured. Fifth, we can trust our resilience. When we face challenges, and we will, we can remember all the difficulties we've already overcome. We can draw strength from our track record of survival, adaptation, and growth. Sixth, we can exercise our imagination. We can dream, plan, envision. We can ask what if, and why not. We can remember that it's never too late to try something new, to see things differently, to hope for change. Seventh, we can choose simplicity. We can distinguish between what we need and what we want, between what enriches our lives and what merely complicates them. We can remember that the best things in life often come in simple packages. Finally, we can prioritize connection. We can reach out to old friends, make new ones, invest in relationships. We can remember that no one looks back on their life wishing they'd spent less time with people they loved. The eternal child. As I close, I want to leave you with this thought. You haven't outgrown your childhood. You've incorporated it. That child who once marveled at butterfly wings and made wishes on dandelion seeds, they're still part of you. That young person who believed in magic and possibility, they still live in your heart. Your childhood memories aren't just the past. They're a compass pointing toward what matters most. They remind you of your capacity for wonder, joy, resilience, and love. They whisper to you across the decades. Remember who you really are. Remember what really matters. Remember that it's never too late to live with the openness, curiosity, and delight of a child. The poet William Blake wrote, "If you would help another man, you must do so in minute particulars." I would add, if you would help yourself, return to the minute particulars of childhood, the small moments of wonder, the simple pleasures, the basic truths about what makes life worth living. Your childhood memories are not just remembrances. They're teachers, still offering lessons about how to live well. Listen to them. Learn from them. Let them guide you back to the essential truths you've always known. Because the child you once were is still the person you are today, wiser now, more experienced, but no less capable of wonder, no less deserving of joy, no less open to the magic that surrounds us every day. Thank you.